The contractor who tried to overcharge my elderly father picked the wrong family to mess with. My 82-year-old dad called me panicked about his roof leak. There's water dripping into the kitchen, and this contractor says it's going to cost $15,000 to fix. Brad from Superior Roofing had shown up at Dad's door that morning, offering a free inspection. He'd climbed up, taken some photos, and delivered devastating news about structural damage and code violations. Your father's roof is a safety hazard, Brad told me over the phone. One more storm and the whole thing could collapse. We need to replace the entire structure. I drove over immediately. Dad was shaken, clutching Brad's handwritten estimate that included vague terms like emergency repairs and safety compliance upgrades. Brad was smooth and confident. I know it's a lot of money, but your father's safety is priceless. We can start tomorrow if you approve the work today. Something felt wrong. The house was only 12 years old and Dad had maintained it meticulously. Can I see the damage you found? I asked. Absolutely. I took photos for insurance purposes. Brad showed me pictures on his phone of what looked like rotted wood and damaged shingles. Everything looked catastrophic. This is extensive damage, he said gravely. Honestly, I'm surprised the roof hasn't failed already. What Brad didn't know was that I'm a licensed structural engineer who specializes in residential construction. These photos are interesting, I said, studying them carefully. Can you show me exactly where you took them? Of course. Right up here on the main section. We climbed onto the roof together. The area Brad pointed to looked completely different from his photos. The wood was solid, the shingles were intact, and there wasn't a single sign of damage. This doesn't match your photos at all, I said. Brad shifted nervously. Well, the lighting was different earlier. Sometimes damage looks worse in photos. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of the exact same spots. Perfect condition. Brad, these photos you showed my father. Where did you actually take them? I told you right here on this roof. No, you didn't. This is completely different wood, different shingles, even different nails. Brad started backing toward the ladder. Look, maybe there was some confusion. The confusion is you showing my 82-year-old father photos from a different house to scare him into a $15,000 repair he doesn't need. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Actually, Brad, let me clear up any misunderstanding. I'm a structural engineer licensed in this state. What you just showed me constitutes fraud. Brad's face went white. Those photos are from a different property, probably one you legitimately repaired. You're using them to scam elderly homeowners into unnecessary work. I can explain. You just tried to defraud my father out of $15,000 using fabricated evidence. That's a felony. Brad started climbing down the ladder quickly. Look, we can work something out. Maybe there was an error in my estimate. The only error was you picking the wrong family to scam. I followed him down. Dad, Mr. Brad here has something to tell you about his inspection. Brad mumbled something about miscommunication and pricing errors while gathering his tools. Actually, Brad, before you leave, I need copies of those photos for my report to the State Contractor Licensing Board. What report? The fraud report I'm filing this afternoon, along with complaints to the Attorney General and the Better Business Bureau. Brad practically ran to his truck. That afternoon, I called the licensing board and discovered Brad had 3 other pending complaints for similar scams, all targeting elderly homeowners. I also called a legitimate roofer for a second opinion. He found the actual leak, a $40 flashing repair that took 20 minutes to fix. 2 weeks later, Brad's contractor license was revoked. The state investigation found he'd been running photo scams across 3 counties, specifically targeting seniors. But the best part came a month later when Dad called me laughing. You'll never guess what happened. Brad just knocked on Mrs. Peterson's door next door trying the same roof scam. What did you do? I walked over and introduced myself as the father of the structural engineer who got his license revoked. Brad has never run so fast in his life. Dad became the unofficial neighborhood watch for contractor scams. Now every elderly resident calls him before hiring anyone for home repairs. Sometimes protecting your family means making sure predators can't hurt anyone else's family either.